Some of the most prominent voices in the anti-vaccine movement are calling each other out, accusing each other of being shills. Let's dig into this and let me know who you think the real shill is in the comments below. I want to let you know that I'm going to be going over Robert F. Kennedy's response first, and then I will play a video of Dr. Shiva giving his take on Kennedy and others, including Del Bigtree. Now, I'll give my personal experience first. I always, Robert Kennedy was one of the first people I heard question vaccines a long time ago, so I've always thought he was a good voice. But then when I heard Dr. Shiva, who recently only came to my attention, and Dr. Shiva was basically calling Robert F. Kennedy a shill, it made me think, and I was like, you know what, he has a good point, because really nothing has come out of it. Even though Trump appointed RFK, nothing came out of that yet either. So I started thinking, well, maybe Dr. Shiva has a good point here, especially if Robert F. Kennedy used to support Hillary Clinton. But then I just recently came across this post I'm getting ready to go over, and I was like, wow, this is, I haven't dug into it and verified everything, I'm just going to share the information, and then, it's not really that important to me, but, look it up, verify it, let me know what you think. Also, give me a thumbs up if you guys like it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. Again, I'm going to start off with RFK, and then at the end, I'll show some video clips of Dr. Shiva. So here's a post from Children's Health Defense, which is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s nonprofit organization that he's had for a while. I think it's good information. Like I said, I've had respect for both of these people. Maybe they're both shills, maybe neither one of them. We'll see. So here's his response to Dr. Shiva's criticism. And he titles it Critical Questions for Dr. Shiva about his attempts to splinter the health freedom movement. I will say, when I first heard Dr. Shiva say that, say something bad about RFK Jr., I was quite shocked. And he said it really out of context in the beginning of the interview, which I thought was a little odd. So here we go. He says, for many months I've remained silent in the face of defamatory and dishonest attacks against me by Dr. Shiva. I can't even pronounce his last name. But basically said, he's did the same thing to other big names in the movement. So here we go. I had never heard of Dr. Shiva when he approached me on the street following a January 6, 2020 Trenton rally. And that's the same thing here. I didn't know who he was in January either. So this is another weird thing, like Obama coming out of nowhere and to a, powerful position. I follow this stuff so closely, it's almost embarrassing. And I had never heard of him. Now all of a sudden he's a major voice in this. Not only with vaccines, but in the COVID-19 truth thing. Anyway, said we had a friendly chat and took a photo. Afterward, he tweeted that I had refused to shake his hand. A half dozen photos of us shaking hands soon surfaced, proving his statements false. It was only then that I learned he was running as a fringe candidate for U.S. Senate against my nephew, Massachusetts Congressman Joseph Kennedy. And this is one of the things I'm going to do. I don't know Joseph Kennedy, but I'm going to look him up and see if I can find video of him giving his stance on vaccines. Because if he's pro-vaccine, that's going to that's going to say a lot, I think. Anyway, so he's saying if he lies about small things, what we do about large. And then he has a screenshot of Shiva's post. But I do want to point out, though, he says, now I see why he would not shake my hand and was so nervous taking a picture with me. Also, he did say that he wouldn't shake his hand. But then it shows pictures of him shaking hands. Only one picture shaking hands, and even then, it's kind of hard to tell. But, it would have been nice if he would have put several pictures up of them shaking hands. Anyways, not a biggie. Attacking our leaders. So basically, right here, he's just basically showing that, some of these people are important in this movement, and for Dr. Shiva to call them controlled opposition is absurd. The thing about Kennedy, he was mostly against thimerosal. he's pro-vaccine, and basically his whole focus is on thimerosal. So I never really saw eye to eye with him on that. But Dr. Shiva also says the same things about Del Bigtree. I find that really hard to believe. I actually recently met Del Bigtree at Anarchapulco in person. I think he's great. I'm a big fan of him, his show. He seems legit to me, both on his show and in person. Also, Del Bigtree did the Vax documentary with Andrew Wakefield, which is what we're looking at here. You know, I just can't see him. I don't see how he could be hurting the movement by putting out this content every week. I hate to pick people, but if I had to, pick one dude, I'd pick Del Bigtree. I don't know this Dr. Shiva guy. I mean, I like his content, and he was rising up in my book pretty fast. But as soon as you start talking smack about Del Bigtree, that is questionable. And then right here he talks about state health freedom advocates. Says Shiva has viciously attacked the brilliant Health Choice Massachusetts organizer Candace Edwards. Here's a video here. I actually didn't know about that either. Some of this I didn't even know about until I saw this article just today. It says, when Shiva calls movement leaders controlled opposition, is he speaking of himself? And of course, as usual, I'll leave a link to this in the description below. If you're watching on Facebook, you need to go check it out on YouTube. Follow me there as well, because that's where I have the post in the description below. Here we go, back to the post. Instead of preaching science, Shiva spends money from his health freedom donor base digging up dirt on other activists. Shiva employs a full-time negative researcher, investigator, Jennifer Bennett, to excavate and invent gossip about health freedom groups and their leaders. Shiva, the vaccine maker. Now, this is where it starts to get good. And the reason why I'm covering Robert Kennedy's response first is because it's been this is brand new. Dr. Shiva's been going on, so I'm assuming if you watch this, you've already seen Dr. Shiva talking smack. I'm going to put that later on. It says Shiva never mentions the fact that he is a vaccine maker. Shiva owns a pharmaceutical company, Cytosolve, that partners with vaccine and drug makers to accelerate FDA approvals for vaccines and other pharmaceutical drugs. His principal business partner is Pfizer, the world's number 4 vaccine maker. I mean, this is a pretty big revelation. He says, are Shiva's attacks on our movement calculated pandering to court affection from Pfizer and his HHS regulators, upon whose favor his financial success relies, and to win their blessings by discrediting a movement that questions vaccine products? Interesting. And here's this proof. Again, I haven't looked into all this. I would imagine that Robert Kennedy would do his research. He's waited a while to do this expose. This is all new to me. I'm just trying to get this out fast because I'm working on a bunch of other things. But he does have a few screenshots showing basically where you can, see his references for how he's getting this information about Shiva. Says he's claims to invent email, which I've heard him say, but federal court has agreed that that's not true. Yada yada. And it says, in fact, Shiva made his fortune running email operations for President Bill and Hillary Clinton during the White House years. It is ironic, therefore, that he accuses others of consorting with the Clintons. The Clinton contract propelled his company, Echo Mail, to a $200 million valuation. And he has this image over here talking about the involvement with this company and the Clintons. Shiva partnered to Microsoft. Shiva's Echo Mail partner was Bill Gates' Microsoft. Even today, Shiva lists Microsoft as his partner on his Echo Mail. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. I just found out about this company homepage. All right. Gates, the world's most prominent and vocal advocate for universal mandatory vaccination, is also a proponent for tagging human beings with injected technologies for tracking vaccine records. I go into this in great detail in my documentary, Pan Deception. Make sure you check that out. It's on my YouTube channel. It's a full hour and a half or hour and 25 minutes. And it basically shows that that is the end game for this COVID-19 pandemic, or plandemic if you prefer, or pan deception if you want to use my term. And basically that's what this all comes down to. And it seems Shiva has ties to Bill Gates. It says Shiva's success at dividing our movement and undermining and discrediting our leadership might ingratiate him with these business partners. Shiva and Bill Gates. It's noteworthy that Shiva consistently mutes his criticism of Bill Gates, seeking to deflect public anger at Gates towards Hillary Clinton. This makes no sense. Hillary's views on mandatory vaccines are aberrant. But unlike Gates, whose ownership of the World Health Organization and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, allows him to dictate global vaccine policy, Hillary's an out-of-work politician with no political power. The Clinton Foundation is virtually defunct and bootless as an arbiter of public health policy. Why does Shiva shield Gates and insist that Hillary is the more important target? I thought that was a pretty good point. I would love to ask Shiva, and maybe I'll see if I can get an interview from him. I'd love to ask him about Bill Gates in this ID 2020, and basically, in a roundabout way, ask him about this stuff. Because this is a big deal. Gates is clearly at the head of the whole thing. Both Gates and Microsoft hold leading stakes in the burgeoning wireless infrastructure expansion. Gates' subdermal chip systems will be capable of meshing with Gates' extensive new 5G antenna and satellite deployments to harvest not only our vaccination and medical data, but also lucrative information about our movements, our purchases, and our desires at the granular level. Shiva lists his other business partners as the principal big data titans, Dell, Oracle, and IBM, which all stand to make a killing on the current 5G expansion. Is this why Shiva refuses to condemn 5G? What do you guys think? That's a pretty good point. At the very end of this video, I'll show you an interview where he was asked about 5G, and just to kind of spoil it, even though you should watch it anyway, so you hear it out of the horse's mouth, he did kind of beat around the bush. He said that, he thinks that it can be harmful to health. It's just to what extent he's not sure, and he doesn't want to comment until he looks at the science more. So, I could see that either way. It could be a legit response, because that's kind of where I'm at with it, or it could just be a cop-out. It could just be because he's behind this 5G and he doesn't want to oppose it. All right. How does Shiva escape censorship? This was another aha moment for me. Shiva is the only leader in our movement who doesn't suffer from the social media censorship that bedevils the rest of us. His capacity to boost his audience, his immunity from shadow banning, from the eviction from his platforms, has allowed him to exponentially expand his base, as the rest of us struggle past the censors to reach our audiences, one follower at a time. Why are Facebook, Google, and Instagram showering love on Shiva while they strangle the rest of us? Why does Silicon Valley boost Shiva and smother us? I thought this was a good point. I knew about Del Bigtree and his show long before Dr. Shiva. And Instagram, Dr. Shiva's got a lot more posts. He's got a lot more posts and a lot more followers. Highwire has less posts, less followers. That could be the reason. But interesting to see that. Anyway. So the thing is I agree with this. I'm being shadow banned. I mentioned it in a lot of my videos because my YouTube channel got deleted a few years ago, and it just hasn't been the same since. So do me a favor, give me a thumbs up if you haven't already. That will help, Anything will help. Maybe share it, better yet, because YouTube isn't going to show it to people. But at least if you give it a thumbs up, throw me a comment, things like that should help. Even though I'm getting a lot of likes for the amount of views that I'm getting, and it's still not working. And also, my pan deception video I think it was really good. I've got nothing but great feedback on it. Still, I have almost no views, just over 1,000 at this point. So I do believe that the censorship is real, and Dr. Shiva comes out of nowhere and has this huge audience that just, to me, I think there's some validity to that. Why is he getting such a huge audience? Shilling for Silicon Valley, big data billionaires, and basically he goes through this experience where he shilled once for Peter Thiel, and then maybe he's saying, oh, well, maybe he realized that he could do this shilling full time or whatever, and be a good shill. Again, we can read the rest of this in more detail. I'm not going to read every single bit of it. And then he says, why does Shiva want to push Democrats? Right here, RFK, he admits he's been a lifetime Democrat. He doesn't admit to endorsing Hillary Clinton. That would not be good. So I assume that he really did. But as he said, he's was working with Trump to head the Vaccine Safety Council and stuff. So, that's a Republican. So basically he's saying this is a bipartisan issue. He says our bipartisan approach is effective and frightening to pharma. Is this why Shiva is trying so hard to excite political hatred among our followers and polarize us along party lines? Can Shiva pass his own ideological test? Now, this was a pretty big shocker. And if you notice the dates, 2015, he's basically sharing, communists in a positive light. This is a big red flag. Now, I don't know if these are legit. I assume they are. But look how many he had back then when the screenshot was taken. 1 comment, 6 likes. This is like mine. I get more than that on my post. So evidently he was not well established 5 years ago. But he was posting pro-communism stuff. This right here could be the biggest red flag of them all, if these posts are real. I mean, it might only just take a minute to go on Twitter and see if they're still up there. Because that says a lot. It says a whole lot about Dr. Shiva. Right? Just that alone would, he couldn't have been that dumb 5 years ago and this smart now. It's just, no. That right there is probably the straw that breaks the camel's back, in my opinion. As long as those posts are real. And if they are or aren't, let me know. Look it up. Let me know. Here's the last paragraph. Shiva does not litigate, publish, or fund scientific research, build institutions, treat patients, or collaborate with other leaders. He has demonstrated no inclination to work with the rest of us to build a movement powerful enough to confront the big pharma and the big data telecom tyrants. He behaves in every instance like a man determined to tear down all that others have built up. People who still believe in Shiva might demand to know why he chooses to spare FDA, Pfizer, Microsoft, and 5G in his barbs, and to direct his poison instead at our proven leaders. Shiva seems intent on distracting Dale, Mark Rashid, Polly, Taylor, Candace, and others from their important work. His sinister, treacherous, and destructive rearguard action, fomenting and feeding schism, I don't even know what that word is, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'll look it up if I can remember. Division, discord, and confusion that harms our movement plays directly into the hands of Big Pharma. Shiva's followers are entitled to an explanation. What do you guys think about that expose? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to get some feedback. Where do you stand on this? Now let's hear Dr. Shiva's side of the story.
One of the things I educated the vaccine movement. By the way, Del Bigtree and Bobby Kennedy, these people are part of the not so obvious establishment. These people try to build careers on the vaccine movement, and we can have a longer discussion about that. Big Tree literally has never had me on his show, is afraid of having me on his show. And we should discuss that because this will lead to why movements never go anywhere.
Right.
Bobby Kennedy, there are people, like the breast cancer movement, right? Have we solved breast cancer? No. Okay. So this is what happens. There's the establishment which wants to keep giving drugs. We know there's a problem, let's say called cancer or the vaccine issue. Suddenly these people come into these movements saying, oh, I want to help it. I want to help it. What they really want to do is they want to build their own business around a problem. You follow what I'm saying? They don't want to solve the problem. They want to build their little media business like Big Tree's doing. Or they want to build their little nonprofit business like Bobby Kennedy's done. For 17 years, he's been talking about vaccines, vaccines, vaccines. Never telling people to go on the bottom and protest, build mass movements. You follow? His view is, I'm Bobby Kennedy, I'll negotiate something for you. I'll go sue this person or that person. It's never about building a broad-based movement. And reflective of this is a guy, Bobby Kennedy, endorsed Hillary Clinton. Now everyone says, well, Bobby's a nice guy, he's against pharma. Yeah, but he endorsed Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton is Miss Vaccine Queen. Okay? She got $350 million for the Clinton Global Initiative to support the Merck Gardasil vaccine, which is one of the most horrible stories that occurred. So Big Tree is so, many of these guys just want to build their own little media box. They don't want to have other people come. They're afraid people are going to steal their eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's what it's, and I'm telling you, when we had the New Jersey event, we said, go on the ground. That's what our leadership said. He was saying, oh, no, don't piss off legislators. All right? This is a very big difference. Botox, well lit, running their little shows. That's not what this is about. This is about building a movement to save lives. They don't want to do that. They just do enough to do the rhetoric. And people get stuck to these people. When I came out and I exposed Bobby Kennedy on the quote unquote, on the vaccine movement, it split the movement. People are yelling at me. And now people get it. You can't win any of these movements if you have unprincipled people, because the unprincipled people speak the words and the rhetoric, but they're really afraid of the revolutionaries like myself and you and others. Okay?
So
there's a big difference between the people who want to create a business off people's suffering.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that's what Big Tree and Bobby Kennedy are about. And that's why they never have me on their shows. When we were in New Jersey, when I looked at that, I said, you know what? There's no vaccine safety assessment. The bottom line is why are we not empowering people? Because all change has always come about, Angelo, if you study history as a systems perspective, bottoms up. It was never some Kennedy giving us anything or some talking head Big Tree, okay? They'll do stuff just enough, maybe to create some awareness, just like people who create the breast cancer awareness, but never want to solve breast cancer. Because after they solve it, what's their business?
Right.
Because they don't have no other jobs.
It's like controlled opposition, and that's why these people are banned.
It's controlled opposition.
They're never banned.
That, and it's the fact these guys don't have another job.
Yeah, that's sad.
What's their other jobs? What's Bobby Kennedy's other job? He was a heroin addict, okay? He got caught. He stopped doing that. Then being a Kennedy, they start saving. Now it's vaccines. Now it's 5G. They jump from job to job to job. Okay?
Wow.
They don't want to empower people because we're supposed to revere these civil rights leaders top down. You see? Things are not supposed to come bottoms up from people like you and me, working class kids in New Jersey, etc. It's not supposed to come bottoms up. It's supposed to come top down. And that's one of the things why we're in this situation. We're in this situation not because of the big pharma establishment, but all those nonprofits that claimed they wanted to help us, all those Hollywood celebrities who claimed they wanted to help us, but always had one foot in, one foot out, golden handcuffs. They never freaking speak the truth. The truth is we need to focus on the immune system. The truth is that we need to decentralize health. The truth is we're not going to get any of this until people build a mass movement, an angry militant mass movement bottoms up. That's how all change has ever occurred.
Right, but we need awareness, and
it's never come from a legislator. It's always been bottoms up. We got all those infrastructure gains in the 1900s because of militant mass movements of the American working class, who no one was fighting for them. They were in squalor in factories. They were suffering. And that's what we're headed to right now. We're headed to a situation. It's going to be suffering in a different way. It's going to be suffering that your freedom will be curtailed. And that suffering is an attack on the human spirit. And the only way through that is to start recognizing how systems work fast, and start recognizing we need to understand the nuts and bolts of how things work. It's not living in some etheric world of celebrity worship.
Right.
We got to let go of all that bullshit.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Doc. And see, folks, this is why they don't want him in the Senate, because this is the opposite of what these people do in there.
Well, this is why Tucker Carlson won't put me on. Tucker Carlson was supposed to have me on, and then he got scared.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Wow. Even Tucker.
All right? The mainstream media, even though they talk a good shtick, does not want real people who will actually affect change. A, they're afraid that I'll take eyeballs from them because that's all they have. And B, look at who funds them. So they'll even act just radical, Angela, just to keep you stuck to them. But they have no intention in actually helping people, you know? They're master grifters. They're grifters of the infinite order.
It's like the steam valve. The people are getting mad, release the steam a little bit. Just
there, you said it.
Just to calm them down, keep them docile.
You got it. That's the not so obvious establishment. You nailed it.
Going back to the vaccination now. First of all, what's weird is that the vaccine companies they're exempt from, they're not liable. And obviously, going back to that lawyer class, that's probably why. So here are these companies.
Yeah, and you know who created that lack of liability for them? Ted Kennedy.
Man.
If you follow the history of vaccines, there's Kennedy,
Yeah.
okay? So you start with John Kennedy, who's the one who put the Vaccination Act. Ted Kennedy, his brother, is the one who realized that people are getting injured, and then they created the vaccine courts to absolve the vaccine manufacturers. And you have Bobby Kennedy running around, bullshitting all of us that he's against vaccines. Meanwhile, he endorsed Hillary Clinton, who's vaccine queen, and then he came here to Boston and endorsed his nephew, who supports vaccine mandates, when he knows I'm here running for U.S. Senate.
Right.
So there you go. You know, what I'm sharing is people really need to stop ignoring facts. They need to look at these facts and say, you know what? A duck is a duck. Okay?
Yeah.
You can't ignore things, but we've been so brainwashed by celebrity culture to ignore actual facts.